Hello, good afternoon, TWC. Good afternoon, YouTube world. Andrew Bennett here, and got a radar update for you. It's been a little while. I was trying to get one out last week, but didn't happen. So, just trying to do some updates on some charts here, some stocks, obviously crypto, Bitcoin, obviously a lot of downside, a lot of choppiness, right? And just not really a big fan of chop. It can be frustrating. It really, you really want to pretty much take short trades for the most part. If you get into the green, just look for resistance areas really, and pull, and pull some profits. I've noticed that that's been easier to deal with as opposed to thinking that you're catching a bottom. I think it's going to ride it up for a while. That's I've done that a few times, and it's really just hasn't worked out. And it's just one of those things where that's why we just look for those invalidations, right? Or we break these certain levels, and then we think, okay, maybe we're starting that upward trend. But for right now, it's just really choppy, and technically, it's still a downward trend on Bitcoin. But we'll go over that in here in a second. But I hope everyone's doing okay. Hope everyone's doing okay. It's actually raining now finally, which is good. We've been needing some rain, so it's a little darker in the background here. But I want to start with Roblox. And Roblox is a trade that we got into. If you're a TWC and you got in this trade with me, we got into it quite a while ago. And it wasn't the exact perfect area to buy in, I remember, but it was a good place. And I remember, wanting to get back in. I never did. I wanted to like buy some more, kind of average out, and I just missed it. And so it's all good. And I want to bring up the fact that we're getting closer to that target, and that target was about 82, 83 bucks. Okay. We're getting pretty close to that. So I got a, um, in tan here, you can see I got a 1, 2, and then I got an inner 1, 2. Really suggested that was the 4 that I was looking for, because I was really actually wondering, when are we going to get this pullback? Because this was this really long drawn out 3, and boom, we got it. I mean, it was on an earnings call, which happens. There's a lot of knee jerk reactions, we like to call them, in the market. When you get these earnings calls, or maybe there's a Fed meeting or something, or whatever the case may be. News kind of moves the price, and usually what it does is it'll create that the dip that we're looking for, or maybe it will that last final push up that we're looking for. So in this case, I was looking for a dip, and we got it. And what happened was, this is the daily, and this is nice too. I mean, I like to see that. I like to see the R1 on the daily go to the pivot and then bounce. And in this case, it went to the S1. So that's okay too, but you really want it to get past that pivot again and really hold up, because what you don't want is, I'm kind of zooming in so everyone can see. So there's my my 5 up, and my 3 that I feel that I got a 3 here, and then I got a quick 4 back to the previous 4, right? So that makes sense. But we're just kind of hanging out below this pivot on the daily, and starting to tighten up with the moving average. So it seems to be wanting to, move its way up and past this pivot. When I zoom in, I've noticed that the counts look pretty good on this, being maybe like a 1, 2 of a 5. So I like that. I'm just going to stick to the daily right now on this, not get too crazy, because the count gets really crazy on this, and just trying to keep it as simple as possible. But that 82, if it works out, is right here at the R2. But if we start to move, this actually could, 82 is the minimum expected. Okay, as you can see, based on our fib extensions, that doesn't mean it has to stop there. So if this thing really starts to take off, now I know we're like mid-February, so the later in the month the pivots kind of act as they start to kind of fade, and new pivots start to come in towards the beginning of a new month. So if we see some good reaction here, maybe back to the R1, and then we get a pullback, and then we should get a go time. But I mean, 82 is not that far away. And so I actually think, depending on how pivots look in March, because I think this is going to probably, this probably play out the rest of February. I'm guessing. I don't know. Unless we get something really going here, because there's a gap. But overall, though, 82 is not that much farther up. So either it's just going to be like a quick, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then call it a day because it's 5 more up to end that wave, 3, 5. Or are we going to get a little bit farther up, and could we see like 90 or even 100? And 100 to me is really it's that it's that even number, it's like a threshold number or whatever you want to call it, really. But it's it just seems like it has a chance to do so. Okay. So I really want to see if this is a 1, 2, and we get a good strong 3. And if this happens like sooner than March, then the pivots could be still in play. And R3 and R4 is 91 and 100. So if we start moving through the pivots, then maybe we get this like really good blast off, and then it's going to be probably a little bit of a local blow off top for that 3. So I like that, and that's when I'll be looking at taking some profits really, for sure when we hit that 82. But if it, depending on the count, is where I will, I don't know, I'm not gonna just take full 100%. Probably take a good chunk. Definitely gonna take a big chunk. But if it's looking more like a 3 to hit that number, and we stuck out a 4 and a 5, then that's when I'll make a little bit of adjustment on that. So if you were wondering like, hey, how do you know how much to pull out as percentage wise? Well, if you understand the counts and you feel pretty accurate and confident with it, then that will help you determine your percentage to pull out. So again, I guess this is here. I'll just kind of draw it out. So let's say this is a 1, 2, which we I think that's what we think this is. Let's say a 3 goes to just like right here, and then we have a pretty strong 4 like that. Well, then you start thinking, okay, maybe it's an ending diagonal, and then that 82 is a little bit more realistic. Do you see that? I'll just stop it right there. So that could be like why I would pull out, majority of it in that case, because I have a real strong 5 up. All right. Now the another scenario would be, well, the counts are looking like this. So we got a 1, 2, and then the 3 is like a really strong 3, and it almost gets, maybe even the 3 gets me to close to 82. I'll take some profit, but then I'll see it come back. I'm like, wait a minute, this only looks like a 4. It looks like we might have some more there, right? So that could be why you would see me take not as much here, because this looks like only 3 up, and then we still got a 4 and a 5, and I want to capture a little bit more. So depending on how that looks is where I would pull out is how I change the percentage. If it really truly does look like a 5 up, then I'm most likely taking out majority. And then when I say majority, 80%. It's been a really nice run, and that will be a double up. So that's a fan. I mean, you can't be wrong with doubling your money, really. So really 80%. And if it's like a blow off top on a 5, I'm just getting out completely, honestly. And just taking it as a win. But again, it just, so this is where it just comes into play, and I don't want to dive into the 4 and 1 hour too much. I just want to kind of see this play out on the daily, just to kind of give me, because it's really been pretty clean on the daily, and I've been real patient with this. I mean, we've been in this for a while, so just don't want to get too crazy with it. Just keep it simple. I've noticed that it's just, man, sometimes your 15 minutes, your 1 hour, what have you, they get a little crazy. So all right, that's Roblox. SMCI, I will actually say that I did take a small bag. I did put a bag into this. It was right around here. I was starting to get it hit B, and then it came back, and I think that's when I grabbed some, just a little bit, because I want to get some action on it, because I'm really liking this now. Once it broke that level B, oh, sorry, let me zoom in a little bit more. right. So once we got above B, that's a really good indication that, you know, we're actually looking better and better at of getting a new count here as far as this being a 1-2. Okay. So if this is a 1-2, minimum expected 3 is 134 bucks. That's minimum expected if this is a 1-2, and that's what it looks like. It really does. It looks really good. This looks like 5 up, good ABC down. Now it looks like a 1-2-3. This looks like a 4, which would make sense. And then a 5 will probably put us to about R4, or maybe we get to R5. But look where we're going up again. We do have that 200-day moving average, and that will probably be a roadblock. So I can see this being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we get to 50, 50 bucks, 51 to about 55, and then we should have a pullback. So like I said, I bought a small bag just to get in it because, I just was kind of getting excited, just to be honest, and I liked the spot that I got into, because if I pull the fibs from the top, you can see that 5 actually kind of puts me back where I kind of entered. So it's, it was a safe place, really, honestly, in my opinion. But if it comes back up, it's probably going to come back down to this $40 level, and that's really the opportunity. And it's going to be It's going to be tricky. Okay. Another reason why I get you a bag, when you go for a 1-2 and then a 1-2, that 1-2-1-2, it could just be a quick wick down, and then it bounces again really fast. So if you're not like right on top of it, Johnny on the spot, you might miss a good opportunity, and then you're kind of buying already late. And I wouldn't say late, but you're already kind of buying up here again. So let's say I'll draw this one out too, just so you understand what I'm saying. 2, 3, 4, and then 5 up here. And then here's what I'm talking about. So I'm in right here a little bit, just like I said, small bag. We get the A, B, and then if you get a C down here, it's probably going to be like wham. Is most likely, if this, this is how it's going to probably look, in my opinion. I feel pretty good about this. This is getting more and more confidence here. If this starts to break down here, then maybe I'm like, whoa, what's going on? But this should continue to keep going, and then we should get that. But this, if this goes up, this pullback will probably be pretty fast. I don't know. It's not gonna be like a month of pullbacks, right? It's gonna be pretty quick. So yeah, it just makes it difficult to find that too. You got to time it right. So that's why it's nice to kind of already be in, and then if you do get a little bit higher, your average kind of comes out, works out. So that's just my thought process. I really like the super micro computer stock. It looks good. Did not get a good earnings call, but sometimes that doesn't matter as much, to be quite honest. I've seen that be, or it turns green and then it keeps going down, and it goes red and it keeps going up. It's just, it's really, that's why learning technical analysis really does help, you know, because it's all about the momentum and the direction of what we were looking at. So, but if this does start to break down, I'll just jump out of my bag. I probably won't get out of the bag until this low, most likely of like 25 bucks, which is actually pretty heavy. I'll probably actually, you know what? I'll do the pivot. I'll do the pivot at 31. Yeah, I don't want to go that low. Goodness. Yeah, we start going down in this R1, the pivot here, and then this green. I'll stay in. The bag is small, so I'm not. Again, I'm not gonna, break my bank or anything. I'll never do so. Um, but I just don't see it. I really don't. So I'm just kind of making that decision as it goes. So I'm just keeping an eye on this one. Indicators do look high, so that does make me also think that we got that one last go and then come back down again. So it's all good though. Everything's looking good on SMCI. Target, okay, Target. I've talked about Target a lot, and it's been a little bit of a headache, to be honest, because we got this chop, but it's starting to make more sense now. So we got that 1-2. I did change my early count. I kept thinking like, man, this looked like a 5, and I was like, okay, how do I get a 3 here? And I completely found it. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's pretty choppy here, but when you zoom in, you can find it. It's there. and then I got an A, and then looks now when it was down here, I was like, ooh, this looks like a 1, 2, 3, but then it was like a 1, 2, 3 A, B, 1, 2, 3 C, or 3, yeah, 1, 2, 3, and then a B. So I'm like, okay, this looks like a flat. And so as I was going down, I kept thinking, this looks like a flat, this looks like a flat, and sure enough, it actually made a lower low on this A. And that's perfect. So this definitely looks like an ABC flat. Now what we need to see is we need to see it kind of start coming back up again. Because if it keeps breaking down, then who knows? This count actually could be all wrong. And this is why I still haven't jumped in this. And I've been talking about it forever. I've been talking about it since December. You know, on the videos, whatever. But I mean, I've really been in this thing for a while, or I've been watching it for a while. So yeah, I really wanted to start moving up again here. I do. The channel is working out, but I don't like how it's really chopping through the EQ. So, you know, I don't know. I'm not a, that's one thing I'm not a fan of. But again, I mean, it really does look like a ABC flat. So, you know, if we start seeing this thing move up again, you know, I'm looking for that new count, then, you know, that's maybe the time. We should be seeing the time soon. I mean, at this point, I got 5 up, I got my ABC flat. So that's at this point, if the count is right, it has to start going up. Okay, if it starts breaking down, then the count is wrong. Then I just have to, you know, think of this as maybe all correctional, which is very frustrating. I don't think that though. I really don't. I do like this count. So I'm sticking to my guns here. Anyway, that's where I'm at on that. Man, you looked good, and then it stopped looking good, and I was like, what is going on? It looked like it was starting to. This was like that ABC that I had, you know, and I was almost ready to go in this trade, and then it started breaking down. And as I wait at the last minute, you know, you're thinking, okay, it's got to start going where I want it to go, and then the very last minute, it starts to move down again, and it makes you rethink. Well, it's definitely made me rethink, and it definitely makes me think that this is an A. So, yeah, A, B, C, changed my count, got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down, and then look at this nice bounce and jump. Yeah, the internet and everything's kind of wonky. It's been a weird day, to be honest with you guys. Then we got the volume. Look at that, low volume, wham, and then it started going up. You know, it's almost just like it's making sense now, meaning the volume is showing up where we needed it to show up. It's on that green where there's good support. I've been looking at that green for a while. And another thing too, I think I talked about this when I thought this was C. There was always something in the back of my mind that I didn't like how it didn't get to the 50. I wanted to kind of get a little bit lower, and it never did. And I was like, okay, well, it's still okay. But now that now it's hit the 50. Now, all right, now it feels better. Like I like this pullback better. So, you know, I like this count better in this case, is what I'm trying to tell you. When I zoom in, because I do want to zoom in on this one, and there's a reason why. Because now we're looking for an entry, right? Because now we're seeing that this being complete as a correction, and where is an entry? And I'll tell you this, guess what? Let me just fix this here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and looks like 5. It might be 1, 2, 3, 4, and we might have one more and then back. Because I'll tell you this, it would have been nicer to hit the pivot. So I'm almost wondering if this is kind of like an ending diagonal here, and we got one more to the pivot and then back to the S1. Because if I move this up to the pivot area, it definitely does move the 382 and the 50 a little bit higher. I don't want it to fill the gap, because then that would be a pretty strong 2, although it can happen. I want it to stay near the 4, the previous wave 4, and that would be here. So that would be the 30, the 50 puts us right there. So I still actually think this is a 1, 2, 3. That's a nice strong big candle there too. So it looks like a 3, and then this looks like a 4, and then we might have one more to the pivot, and then back to that 50 pullback. And that's where I feel good and confident about jumping in. Okay, so that's how I am on you. I will say this too. If I go to the 4-hour real quick. Oh wait. Oh well, there obviously there's the channel, right? Look at that EQ. EQ is solid. See, it's much better here than that target. See how it's very solid. There's a lot of holding points and then a breakdown, and then see how it did a doji and it wicked into it here. The EQ is really good. Okay, it went down to the S3 too. I almost was thinking, oh my gosh, this is gonna go to S4 because I was gonna buy it down there. If it was gonna drop, because that was gonna be near the bottom of this channel. I was just gonna grab a small bag and maybe try to catch a bottom, but it bounced back up again. So it's going back into this range. It's hitting the pivot. So it's definitely an area where it should have some resistance. So we should have a pullback, and then we're gonna look for that that fib level, 50 level. Okay. So those are the stocks I like. There's a bunch of other stocks I do like, to be quite honest with everyone, but I just don't want to go over every one. Obviously Palantir has been crushing it. Peloton, some big movement on Peloton. That's been really good. I haven't really talked about that one. Coin, what a day with coin. Goodness. Coin. There's that 3-day chart. And I threw some extra things in there. You know, this channel's been pretty solid. And, hitting that bottom area there at that 50, I marked it on the orange. It's hitting the, the EQ of the RSI. And it did it again. And we got the blast off from right there. And it really does look like we're just right in that same area again. Now, the only thing that's different is the fact that we're literally ranging and we're not dropping. And that's not bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, it doesn't have to drop, right? But it's just kind of holding up. And now we're at that 50 again. So the only difference I've noticed is that when it's hit there, it's taken off. It's really kind of been almost like a peak point on the on my bearish right up here. And it's really kind of rounding. So, does it just become a rounding bottom here instead of more of like a V? And that could be the case. Maybe it just kind of rounds up. And then I almost had this thought, like, what if this is, some kind of a bigger cup and handle or something? Because these two tops here, the greens, almost are exactly the same price. And, that kind of had a little bit of a rounding bottom there too when I look at the 3-day. But I don't know. That's just me just kind of getting creative. Ultimately, though, everything that has happened before on the indicators are happening again here in the same area. And when we got to these points, that was the 3 and the 4, and we had one more run. So, I mean, honestly, we're looking at a last run here to complete the five waves. I mean, it really should start looking like this. And I literally just cloned that arrow, and it's pretty much just kind of the same spot. The other one was kind of down here. That's why it goes right back to the top of the channel. But if this is it here, right around here, it should get us to about April and May, and that's kind of what I've been talking about: April, May, and an extension, June, July, into August. That's the extension when you look at the historical data of how long the bull run lasts from the happening, in the fact that it at least goes 12 months. Sometimes it goes a little bit longer. In most cases, it has gone longer. So, one more go here should be the play. I mean, it really should. We should see this, and I've always talked about 172,000 would be a wave 5 target, and that's right about that same area in this channel. Okay, so This 5 is strategically marked at the end of April at 174,000, right? Or 172 is at the top of the channel. Okay. So that's what I'm looking for. Okay. And if this happens to do what I'm talking about right now, okay, let's say this is accurate, right? And we see price getting to the top of this channel. Actually, you know what? Let me do this. Let me do this. Okay, so let's say we got a 1-2, right? So this is all of a 1-2. This is a 1-2. So this should probably start going like this, and then it's gonna get a little crazy, and then it's gonna finally like do something like that, right? And then are we gonna see a very sudden drop? I mean, if it's a 5 of 5, it probably will be a blow off top. And when we're getting into this red, because this red has definitely been an area to probably sell out. So as we start getting this red, so let's say about 150, about 145, 150,000, it's gonna be there's gonna be people selling. Okay, I just by looking at this chart, and it's been accurate so far this whole bull run since, you know, 22, right? December 22. Was it December 22? What was the bottom? November 22. Yeah, so it's gonna get really parabolic here, and it really, euphoric, right? Euphoric, parabolic, whatever you want to call it. It's gonna have that. It's just gonna be strong. There's obviously not gonna be any resistance. It's already, the 100,000 was like that, mental, blocking point, and that's why we've kind of hovered around it. I think that's my theory. But once it really start taking off, really people are gonna be like, what's gonna happen is people are gonna start calling for 200,000 and beyond, 200,000, half a million, whatever. And it's really not gonna have any real resistance at that point. Now 200,000 is probably gonna be one of those other numbers, but if I'm using this channel, which is my guide, my personal guide, as we get into about 150, 160, I'm gonna really, really be looking for like a blow off soon. Okay. Now I'm not saying that's it end game, and we're gonna cruise down from there, but I will be 100% looking for those signs of a top, right? And probably if we do get a good blow off top wick and we kind of bounce around for a little bit, because what will happen is, people won't think it's over, right? It will bounce around maybe a little bit, and then it'll get that B, and that will probably be a really good short opportunity, right? So we'll get this like last hoorah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It wasn't perfect, and then it's gonna drop, and then people are gonna like buy the dip, whatever, and it's gonna try to make it back up there, and then smart money will be like, I'm not into this. I'm looking to short, and there could be some heavy shorting there, and it could be a good opportunity for that. So that's the case, because if this is 5, then we really have to measure back. And normally on 5, you look back at around 4, the previous 4. Well, that's all the way back down to possibly even in the 50s, right? This wick goes to 48,000. Okay, that wave 4. I'm not trying to get that far ahead in my thinking here, because who knows what could happen. But that's the kind of potential a bigger wave 2 from the 5 up could look like. All right, so I don't know this. The kind of the scary thing is like, well, what's the market kind of going through, right? What's happened? Because charting kind of leads up to something, and if there's a massive drop, you know is there an event happening, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I'm not trying to like say there's any predict stuff, but it kind of does if you really technically think about it. It kind of helps. In certain cases, it's not like I'm not going to go into anything specific, but you can look back and kind of take some big events that we've had, especially in the last 2020, right, 2021. You can look at what big events happened there and how inflation happened, but you can see how a lot of price action kind of moved in that general direction before it really kind of tanked, right? So just kind of think about that if you haven't already. Then but that's what I'm looking for here, and that's why I have this channel, and this is why I really like this. It doesn't mean that it's going to stop here at 172, but that's absolutely an area from history and with duration and fib extensions, like I've showed you guys before, that's a good target for me. Locally here, I want to go to the 12-hour, and I'm pulling out the old Bollinger Bands on this one because I was thinking, like, when we get all this sideways chop for a long time and prices literally like doing nothing, like when you look at the daily, you're like, oh my gosh, it's brutal. I start to wonder how the Bollinger Bands look, right? Is it tightening? Well, sure enough, it's getting tight. Okay, it's getting really tight. This area is actually, I had to go back, and I'm not going to go all the way back. I could, it's way down there. The last time it was this tight, it shot up or it shot down. Okay, and right now, the way it looks, I'm just going to say at the moment, if I was just going to trade a Bollinger Band and pivots, I would say that this might shoot down. Okay. Now, that's not me using Elliott wave or anything. I'm just saying using the Bollinger Bands and the direction and the way that the pivots are, and then we're really kind of like this green here, this smaller green support, that's been really strong support. But if we're pressing down in that's a big loss area, and we can really probably dive down. It's really like this wick and these other ones here. But with the Bollinger Bands, as you can see, they get widened. But when they really tighten up, man, here's a tight right here. Oh, they tightened up and shot up way up. It went up here, right? And then down here, this is pretty tight. This is not but this is really tight. You can see the volatility we got. It hasn't been that way since, but right now we're below the EQ of the Bollinger Bands. So that doesn't mean it doesn't mean that we can't break up. It needs to really break. There's some key points here that is showing that this actually might hit a downside, but maybe it's fast, right? Because of the Bollinger Band. So here's what I'm thinking. We got the pivot, the hourly pivot. Now this is a 12-hour, so this is why I'm saying the 12-hour, because I like the MAs on the 12-hour. So we got the pivot here is now currently showing resistance. We have the EQ of the Bollinger Bands is showing resistance. We are hanging on to good support here, so that's positive. But if you can see here, the green and the red MAs are above price, and we're actually seeing, because the 200 MAH is the green. If you can actually see how that has actually played a role here. Okay, see how that had this big wick and then it bounced off of it on the next candle. We came back to the 200. We wicked and came back up. But see what's happening? We're hitting the Bollinger Band EQ and the pivot all at the same time, and it's not getting us back up above to the top of the Bollinger. So the top of the Bollinger has been kind of like basically dried up. There's nothing up there, and all the prices below. So this is probably going to have a good spring either to the upside or to the downside. And currently, I'm thinking at the moment that we might see it down. And I'm going to go back to my 3-day. Okay, so remember how I said we're kind of doing like a rounding bottom, and then those other two times it hadn't done that. It did like a V. Well, maybe we're about to see the V. Okay, maybe we're about to see the V. Maybe we're about to see it pop down here and actually make a little bit of a lower low, and that will complete, and it will hit the 50 here in the red, and then it'll do that bounce. Okay, so because this is I actually brought this up in one of our classes. Like I was kind of messing with Chris. Says, hey, is this a double top, right? And so far it kind of actually has been working out that way. But it's trying to, it's really, see, price is really trying to go up, but it's really getting shut down. Okay, it just is. You know, there's no way to deny that. All right. Let me show you one more thing. I'm really actually diving into Bitcoin right now, so hopefully you guys are cool with that. On the daily, let's let it load here. So I have this as 3, but then I had this like also thought, because this is super. What gets, and I've asked Chris about this too. What's kind of screwed up is this Darth Maul that we remember that Darth Maul a long time ago. That screws up counts on making this a 3. It makes it difficult. This actually make a higher high. So I almost wondered if this was an A, B, like a flat and then a C, or maybe in some weird way that this is 3 of 3 and this is the actual 3 over here. And we're still waiting for 4. Because if I move, you know, I guess I can move that up and that would just move the 50 up a little higher. But then that would kind of make sense, meaning we get this down here, make a lower low from this, and then we springboard. And then that, going back to that 3-day, I've always been watching for, like, looking for that drop and then that springboard. That would be right around 87,000 if we were to do it. Like, let's say it were to happen like tomorrow, that soon. It'd be about 87,000. If it went a little bit longer, it might be like almost 88 or maybe 86. But you got to get the point, right? 86, 87, 88,000. And then it would hit that area that I've been actually kind of looking for, because we broke down from the EQ, and that's another thing too. We broke down from the EQ. We've never really recovered from that, and that's kind of why I brought this whole thing up from the beginning. Once we broke down the EQ, we came down to this other midway of this other channel, and then did this springboard up. So ultimately, what I'm really trying to say is, I'm obviously I'm doing, if I'm going to trade, it's very short term. Like if I trade in the morning on the beginning of the day, I'm trying to close it before the day is over, because I've noticed that if I kind of try to roll it over, it actually, I lose a lot of gains. So that's kind of been my thing. If this drops down and we have this thing really kind of lose its footing, I'm going to be looking at 87,000 for sure, without a doubt, and looking for that. Now, if we get much lower than that, 86 and 85, then we might be filling some fair value gaps. And I don't know if we've talked about that a whole lot, but there's a couple fair value gaps on the daily, okay, that could actually be could end up being filled up. And this is, I know this is me starting. It's probably, you're probably like, man, Andrew, you sound more bearish. And you know, I'll be honest, I'm 50-50 right now. This because it keeps getting denied. So you know, it needs to get up here soon. Like this correction can only last so long. Eventually, it's either going to just lose itself, or it's going to just say, all right, I'm ready to go up. So it has to happen sooner or later. But look, there's a couple fair value gaps here, and those are low. Like that's 81. That could be like all the way to 81, and then this other one is like 77. So that's like, whoa, that's really low. So I'm not a fan of that. But you know, the dailies has been back forth, choppy. So you know, going back to my Bollinger Band idea, I just wanted to bring this up. You can see how the 200 MA has been either support or we've broken down and it became resistance. But see here, it was resistance too, and the next candle was really strong, but it did go down first and then go up, right? So wonder what's happening here. If we go down here, like this was like that wick was very, very strong. Like that was a good time to buy, obviously. But if we start breaking down here, should we be looking at the bottom of this wick? That's kind of my thought. And look where the S1 is at too, right? The S1 is in play. Now this is the hourly, depending on the week goes, you know, I don't know if I'm looking at that just yet. Right now it's just hovering right here. But the Bollinger Bands, as the next 12-hour candle ends up happening, which is going to happen soon, these bands are going to get even tighter. So, you know, tomorrow we'll probably we might see the movement tomorrow. Okay, You might see it tomorrow. All right, that's just my ideas and thoughts. You know, overall, I'm still thinking upside. I've showed you that 172K, so I just want to make sure that's very clear. You know, here's where I'm talking about. Here's the 15-minute real quick. This is what I'm talking about, just making small trades. You know, you guys saw earlier in the week, we made a trade here and then it just kept breaking down. And then finally it broke down. I was like, man. So here we are again. And then I had this crazy 15-minute wick, which I got to tell you, that is always wild to me when we see these like massive wicks and then just get eaten up. I always wonder like what is going on there. That's kind of weird. Um, so you know, it's a good pullback right here. This looks like it could be a 1 and then A, B, like this was the A, and then back to B as a flat, and then we actually worked on a long drawn out C, and we might be actually doing a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. So this is where the green, the more of the on the smaller accounts, smaller time frames, it does look like we have some good potential to flip that Bollinger Band back up, and you see it's trying to do so. So if we can, then this will probably be the entry, the overall entry to that better upside. Okay, so things are happening soon is what I'm trying to get at. But right now, the resistance bear side of things are they're looking like they might be in control at the moment. All right. Oh yeah, we had the triangle, we broke out, and then I have the 5 there, but if that was a triangle 4, that was 5, and this broke down below the triangle. So my thought of are we going to have another shoot down? Well, right now, we're just kind of hovering. It's really looking at Bitcoin or I mean alts, XRP, all these other coins are looking at Bitcoin like, all right, what are you going to do? Because they're not very strong. They're really not. There's only a couple. Like I've kind of looked at like for example, XRP versus Bitcoin on the other hand is kind of interesting. Um, if you look at the weekly, I was looking at XRP versus Bitcoin on the weekly. It looks like it goes to R1 back to the pivot. That's actually really bullish. So we just need to start moving beyond this orange resistance, and that could maybe then that generates the alt. What everyone kind of talks the alt season, where Bitcoin starts to break down slowly, and then alts like work very well against it. But then that would mean like, okay, well, is Bitcoin more topped? I don't think that's true. So I think Bitcoin has one more good run, and then we'll kind of get that better alt run after that. So I like this being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back down and looking holding support. The only thing that Sol is kind of weird is the weekly, because I went pivot R1 back to pivot. So I'm like, wait a minute, is that it? Is it going to come down to the S1? And it's really again another one that's kind of holding on to support like Lifeline almost. So this really needs to start moving up again. This is the weekly. Or if there's a real true breakdown, then maybe Sol hits 90, right? And people are going to freak out over that 90. I mean, that's huge. That's a big pullback. And then you can actually start thinking like, wait a minute, is this now all 5 up and then is that a 2? I don't know. Sol's pretty choppy. Now this also could be like a flat here is kind of what I was thinking. And when you go back to the daily, it does look like a flat. But I'm just really just kind of holding off on alts long term right now. I want to see that better upside. So anyway, my computer is pretty jacked up. I'll be honest with you guys. So I'm just gonna kind of wrap this up. RUNE, I want to talk about RUNE real quick. RUNE looks really good right here. Now, I will say, I just don't think this is possible. I was like, is this a flat ABC? And then this, I was like, no, there's no way. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 with the leading, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it actually goes higher than 3. It's perfect. So RUNE, although it made that major drop, it might be bottoming. Okay, so I threw the fibs up here to see if we can get this pullback. So, and it, look, if it goes back to the pullback, it's probably just going to come to the pivot, which is just beyond the 382. The $1.28 looks to be a really good spot. Okay, $1.28, right? Because if this is a 5 up and we get pullback for 2, that's going to be pretty solid, I think. All right, so here's an altcoin that actually does look pretty good, in my opinion. Better than some of the other ones. And then last, I'll just bring up Trump, just because, you know, I don't know. Everyone, including myself, was all in with Trump, made some good money with Trump. And then it really just kind of died off, and it just fell down, you know, all the way back down as low as $14.27. And considering that it went to $77, you know, this is the president's deal, right? So it you know, it's really just kind of flattening out, as you can see. I kind of drew this channel here because I went with this tap and then this tap, and then I just based it off here. And then what's kind of interesting when you do that is the candle. You can see how there's this teal. Those are my compression wedges, so they're not. There's always, it's how price kind of compresses inside of it, and then it's almost like the Bollinger Band effect, right? Eventually, it's going to like do something. It's going to knee jerk, and it's going to get crazy. Well, in this case, it actually popped out of it, and it looked like almost like a candle that would break out of a channel too. And now it's kind of going into um, almost a little consolidation, where it looks like a 1, 2, 3 order. This actually might be 1, 2, right? Well, we got the 1, 2 here. You might have a 5 up here for another one. I mean, you know, it's hard to say. Maybe this is just a 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to break down some more because it's not getting above the pivot and holding. But it was kind of interesting to see that. So there were some signs of hope on this, to kind of see it break out of this potential channel, and the volume was really good on that. Okay, so if this is a 1, 2, and then we got another 1, 2, you know, we could actually see some fireworks at Trump soon on Trump coin, maybe, and people start talking about it again because it's really just died. You know, it died. Like, no one's talking about this from what I've seen. So that would bring, you know, maybe bring the masses back into it and kind of give it a nice run because it ran really well. So, you know, a lot of people took profit, and then people got scared and sold out of it. And then there's probably these OGs that are still holding it, right? That's kind of what it's came down to. And those OGs are just like, I'm good. You know, they're maybe they just broke even. Maybe they bought in around $14 or $10, so they're maybe just barely up, or they're just break even. So that could be the case, and that's kind of why we're flatlining, right? Because it was right around, I will tell you, it's right around 12 to 14 bucks is where everyone really started realizing what was going on. Because at first, if you had followed this whole Trump thing, people actually thought he was hacked. They were like, "There's no way Trump's actually doing this." Well, you know, sure enough, it was true. But by then, you know, it was already kind of working its way towards the $10, $12 range because it was fast. So then everyone was like, "This is real," and then that's when a lot of more people jumped in, and now we're back to that range again, right? So it just kind of makes you think like, okay, that would be a nice area for it to pull back to, and then if it just kind of ranges out a little ways and kind of creates, you know, some structure here, some a good floor, then, you know, maybe we can actually start looking for these to count, you know, for a bottom here, you know, with this wick here, you know, this one. So anyway, Trump's just going to stay on the watch list for right now, and maybe on the radar, but it was just something I wanted to bring up. So anyway, I'm gonna finish up. I'm gonna try to chop this thing up to make it so it's not too bad. Hopefully this works out in this video that I can still post because it was a lot of mess here today. I hope everyone's doing really well. I posted about the mini March minis. Hopefully that's kind of a cool thing to do. Um, Chris talks obviously a lot about you know making these green trades, and they're not trying to buy off your car or something, or sell that. Everyone, what am I trying to say? Twitter, all they talk, everything on Twitter is the meme coins and people showing them they got millions of dollars in their stupid wallet, right? And my theory is honestly, most of the people probably knew about it before they really kind of announced it. So those are the ones that were super early, in my opinion, which is fine, whatever, good for them. But it's very misleading. It's very misleading. So what it does is, it for the most part, for the most people, even myself, really, in some cases with emotions, is you're trying to get that too. You're trying to get that. Man, that would be so awesome. To just in one trade in like 6 hours, I make $200,000 or something, right? Obviously. So you know you start thinking like, oh, I found this bottom, and this thing's gonna really rip. Well, it's like, wait, how many times, I'm talking about myself here, right? Where I've been in a trade, it started really rolling. I'm like, oh, this is it. This is gonna go good. And I had some good targets, and then it just kind of dies back again. And I'm like, oh, I pull out for just minimal gains, right? Right? Because I'm like, well, I want to make something out of the trade. Hopefully this makes sense. Hopefully you guys are like, yeah, I kind of do the same thing, because I feel like that's the case. I feel like come in, you got a good trade going, your percentages are going up, right? Getting those R's, right? And you start to think like, all right, cool, and then maybe even move up your stop loss, which is really smart, honestly. Here's the thing: move your stop loss up pretty quick, okay? Because if that way, you capture it, and it's just not even, you're not even, because you can just you maybe look at a chart, or maybe you just call it a day, and then it just does it for you. And because a stop loss is literally taking emotions out of the trade, because it does it for you. Like, it's there's no emotions cut. So maybe that's the case. But the March minis, I want to really try to drive home the fact of, just as you start to see that thing pump, take profit and just move on, and just do that, do that, do that, do that. And I want to do this too, because there's times where I see them like, oh, I'll go a little bit more, a little more, a little more. Okay. A lot, there's times too where I do take a lot of smaller trades and compound, and that's how I've been building my overall capital up, and it's really, when you think about it, it's more because of that than the bigger ones are nice, but when you compare the bigger ones to the smaller ones, there's way more hits than home runs for sure. So it does make a lot of sense what Chris is trying to say, but it's that emotions thing. And when you're on Twitter and you see these people with these massive gains, you're like, I want to be a part of that. I mean, that's a natural feeling that you might have. So that's what I'm thinking. March minis, let's just do it. And I'm thinking, why don't we even? I'm gonna start saying, look, I just did this, this, and this, and this. I just knocked out, 8 or 10 in a row, just minis. Okay, and that equaled out, compounded to something nice. And I want to just keep doing that. And if tighter, obviously smart stop losses, right? So I don't want to lose any real gains, because obviously you don't want to have all these minis and then you have a really bad stop loss and you just lost all those minis. So the stop loss has to be smart. You have to do that, right? Because then the minis don't make a whole lot of sense. But if you do that with a smart stop loss, I want to start seeing myself, and then everyone else in the group that wants to do this, how many minis we get in a row, how many hit, what kind of hitting streak are we in, right? Are we hitting, like I said, it's hitting 500, right? Baseball 300 is really good. Well, we're not playing baseball. We need to be hitting like 700, right? So 7 out of 10 minis, winners, right? And it evens out to winners. And let's just do that all month. And let's actually, if we put it to the test this way, because if you're battling with this, and I'll tell you that I have too, why don't we test it? Why don't we just literally test it? This is, you know, let's take March, right? Let's practice in Fed. Let's take March. You know, I mean, look, the bull run's going to happen regardless, right? And I'm not saying that every single trade has to be that way, because if we, let's say we start seeing Bitcoin like really start to move, okay, well then grab a good Bitcoin and let that one go. But let's do these other minis too, right? Okay, so that's my kind of my thought process, and I like to see how you guys are taking, how you guys are doing, how it's working, because ultimately I think that would be really fun. And we start all building our capital together, you know. So hopefully that works out. I do. And yeah, so have a wonderful, wonderful day, wonderful weekend. We're coming up to the weekend, and you guys all take care, and God bless. All right, thanks again.